Hi, this is not really a video that is of philosophical discussion, but it's more a video that is like it's a reading mostly. It's mostly what it is. Right now, I'm trying to reread Husserl, Heidegger, Sartre, Merleau-Ponty, De Beauvoir, Camus, and others to try and lock down what each of their senses of, I mean, not all of them, but like, for instance, I'm trying to reread and write down and get together each of Husserl's, Heidegger, Sartre's, and Merleau-Ponty's ideas of the self and consciousness. I'm trying to figure out where the problems of other minds stand. I'm trying to figure out stuff like that for the purpose of getting that stuff down, and so that I'm not having to go back all the time. I'm trying to reread this and write it down because I'm trying to figure this out for my book that I'm trying to get together, because I don't really have a lot of time. I'm trying to use what time I have, and while I read stuff, and while I do that, I'm making videos here on the side here. That's what I've been doing for a while. But yeah, with the time I have, I'm trying to write some stuff down and figure some stuff out, so I don't have to keep going back to the texts. And I'm trying to hopefully move towards when I can go back and revise the chapters that I have done, and rewrite and write further. So anyway, I was rereading Merleau-Ponty, and it's of the phenomenology of perception, which is a great writing of his. It's big into phenomenology, for one thing, of course, and it discusses a lot of the ego, or what Husserl would call the ego, the consciousness. And in the preface, he questions what phenomenology is. This book is an anthology of his writings. It has structure of behavior, phenomenology of perception, visible and the invisible, as well as a couple parts of painting, and one other one I forget. But yeah, this is from Phenomenology of Perception, and in the preface of this, I'm reading from the preface itself. And he questions what phenomenology is. And I'm just going to read this to you. What is phenomenology? It may seem strange that this question has still to be asked half a century after the first works of Husserl. The fact remains that it has by no means been answered. Phenomenology is the study of essences, and according to it, all problems amount to finding definitions of essences, the essence of perception or the essence of consciousness, for example. But phenomenology is also a philosophy which puts essences back into existence, and does not expect to arrive at an understanding of man and the world from any starting point other than that of their facticity. It is a transcendental philosophy which places in abeyance the assertions arising out of the natural attitude, to the better to understand them. But it is also a philosophy for which the world is always already there before reflection begins. Thus, it's pre-reflective. As an inalienable presence, and all its efforts are concentrated upon re-achieving a direct and primitive contact with the world, and endowing that contact with a philosophical status. It is the search for a philosophy which shall be a rigorous science, but it also offers an account of space, time, and the world as we live them. It tries to give a direct description of our experience as it is, without taking account of its psychological origin and the causal explanations which the scientist, the historian, or the sociologist may be able to provide. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. There's still a need to understand the prestige of the myth of the origin of the fashion. The opinion of the responsible philosopher must be that phenomenology can be practiced and identified as a manner or style of thinking, that it existed as a movement before arriving at a complete awareness of itself as a philosophy. So that's touching on the idea of phenomenology as a method rather than a philosophy itself. It has been long on the way, and its adherents have discovered it in every quarter. Certainly in Hegel and in Kierkegaard, but equally in Marx, Nietzsche, and Freud. A purely linguistic examination of the text in question would yield no proof. We find in text only what we put into them, and if ever any kind of history has suggested the interpretations which should be put on it, it is the history of philosophy. We shall find in ourselves and nowhere else the unity and true meaning of phenomenology. It is less a question of counting up quotations than of determining and expressing its concrete form of this phenomenology for ourselves, which has given a number of present-day readers and the impression on reading Husserl or Heidegger not so much of encountering a new philosophy as of recognizing what they had been waiting for. All right, and then that is one of my favorite discussions, one of my favorite definitions of phenomenology. I'm going to skip ahead here to a different part of the preface, which I find also something I want to just read. It's very interesting. If I can find it. What is it? I was talking about something. I apologize. Okay. Here we go. I rediscover in me as the permanent horizon of all my cogitations, as a dimension in relation to which I am constantly situating myself. The true cogito does not define the subject existence in terms of the thought he has of existing, and furthermore, he does not convert the indubitability of the world into the indubitability of thought about the world, nor finally does it replace the world itself by the world as meaning. On the contrary, it recognizes my thought itself as an inalienable fact, and does away with any kind of idealism in revealing me as being in the world. It is because we are through and through compounded of relationships with the world that for us, the only way to become aware of the fact is to suspend the resultant activity, to refuse it our complicity, to look at it ohne mitzumachen, as Husserl often says, or yet again to put it out of play. Not because we reject certainties of common sense and a natural attitude to things. They are, on the contrary, the constant theme of philosophy, but because, being the presupposed basis of any thought, they are taken for granted and go unnoticed, and because in order to arouse them and bring them into view, we have to suspend for a moment our recognition of them. The best formulation of our reduction is probably that given by Eugen Fink, Husserl's assistant, when he spoke of wonder in the face of the world. Reflection does not withdraw from the world towards any unity of consciousness as the world's basis. It steps back to watch the forms of transcendence fly up like sparks from a fire. It slackens the intentional threads which attach us to the world and thus brings them to our notice. It alone is consciousness of the world, because it reveals that world as strange and paradoxical. Okay, that thing I just read there, that is, in my opinion, that is a good way of describing, in a way outside of Heidegger, it's a different kind of way of describing how the consciousness of self is in the world, and how, and it goes upon describing a certain pre-reflective consciousness, and it explains how the self is in the world rather than referring to a idealist or objectivist idea of consciousness, and it's not going by saying that this is a product of my consciousness, but it's saying that I am in the world, and I am experiencing it. So it's, in a way, it's sort of objectivity. But I just wanted to read that because, I have no real, I rarely have a video where I rarely have a video where I discuss things and don't have some sort of things to discuss or argue, but I just wanted to read that because that's a very, very good way to look at phenomenology, and it's a very, very good way to explain some things that come with this method or philosophy, whatever way you wanna explain it. So yeah, thank you.